Welcome to the Dietitian Side Hustle podcast. My name is Katie Dodd and I am a nutrition entrepreneur. But here's the catch. I have a full-time traditional dietitian job. My entrepreneurial endeavors are my side hustle. I've been making six figures through my job and side hustle doing things that I love. If I can do it, you can too. This podcast is for dietitians, interns, and students who want to be inspired to start or perfect the side hustle of their dreams. Let's do this. Hello and welcome to the 43rd episode of the Dietitian Side Hustle podcast, Dietitian Side Hustler to Dietitian Boss. Today I will be interviewing Libby Rothschild. Libby is the CEO and founder of the Dietitian Boss Method, which has supported over 1,000 dietitians to attract clients in their private practice. Libby is also the host of the Dietitian Boss podcast, along with her growing team of dietitians. Welcome, Libby. Would you like to share a few words before we get started?
Thank you for the introduction. As far as a few words, let's see, for anyone who's listening, you can follow me on social media at Libby Rothschild on Instagram, on YouTube, Dietitian Boss, and then my podcast, Dietitian Boss, and then my website, dietitianboss.com.
Awesome. So I know we were talking a little bit before we got started, but I have been a big fan of Libby's for a long time. I actually was listening to her podcast before I even started my own business. So I'm just so excited to have you here today. And I'm also really excited for today's interview because I know that you're going to serve as a source of major inspiration for so many of our listeners who are just starting their side hustles. I know when you started your entrepreneurial journey, you were a side hustler too, and now you are totally rocking it in the online space, helping hundreds of dietitians. You've been able to hire a team, and you're now running a $1 million business. So I'm wondering if you would be able to share your story with our listeners, from where you started as a full-time clinical dietitian to a side hustler to a full-time entrepreneur.
Absolutely. So thank you, by the way, for listening to my podcast. That's nice. It's nice to hear that. And I hope that dietitians who do listen to it can gain a lot of value, because statistics show from CBR and the Academy of Nutrition and Dietetics that anywhere from 3 to 10% of dietitians own their own business. Mm-hmm. And that's quite the range, right? Anywhere from 3 to 10. I believe CBR is in the lower end, and the Academy of Nutrition and Dietetics Compensation Salary Guide, the most recent one, says up to 10%. Mm-hmm. So very few percentage of us, a small minority of us, are private practice operators. And the mission of my company, Dietitian Boss, is to create more private practice operators. And the vision of my company includes that every dietitian who wants to start a business, whether that's a side hustle like what you teach or full-time, they have the tools, the skills, the confidence, and the knowledge to do so, specifically through my platforms and what I'm able to do both for free and then also in my program, where I show dietitians step by step how to start and grow their practice. So I think it's important as dietitians that we have the opportunities to do that. That being said, to back up as far as my particular story, I think it's important that you understand the mission and vision of my company. As I segue into that, I am a clinically trained dietitian, so I have my master's degree from New York University, clinical nutrition. I worked a job for 5 years. I did long-term care. I know that's your background, yep, Katie. So I know that drill. I did that for, I want to say 8 months. I was chief clinical. And then I went into pediatric outpatient, and then I also worked in just it wasn't diabetes specific. I worked in several different clinics within an outpatient office, but right before I left, and worked with adults, although I spent a good amount of time with peds. In my clinical jobs, and like most dietitians, I felt I didn't feel underpaid. I was underpaid. So the Bureau of Labor Statistics says that dietitians make, I believe it's 60-ish. I might have double checked if it's 60 or 65 is the median. Of course, it depends where you live. Keep in mind, I'm from New York City. I live in Jersey now, but at the time, I got my schooling, finished that in Manhattan, and worked there. And my first job was $55,000. So I was paid really low, and cost of living was higher than $55,000. And I was frustrated because working for my master's degree and going through the non-paid dietetic internship, I know some of them are paid, like very few for the internship, but most of them aren't. So to go through my internship, schooling, master's degree, all to go into a job that pays me $55,000 didn't feel great. So I found myself frustrated and thinking, like, very optimistic, oh, I'll be able to figure it out. I'll be able to make more money and do something. And I ended up picking up extra hours at my hospital. Our clinic had another office, and I ended up working like a weekend doing working with an obesity pediatrics clinic and doing all these additional things. And what I ended up doing is working more hours to get paid slightly more. And with taxes, it didn't even really turn out that well for me. So the frustration bottled up, and then I was pretty depressed, working in a windowless clinical office with a staff that, didn't see me. I was invisible, and I advocated all the time for nutrition, and my advocacy efforts were met with a dead end. And it was really frustrating, and I turned bitter and angry, and thought it was my fault, and my confidence went down. And finally, one day I did network, because, as I had mentioned, I worked in other clinical offices within my hospital with different like units and whatnot. I networked with a dentist, but to this day I call him my mentor. His name is Dr. Gates. He was actually the chairman of the dental department in my hospital, and he offered me an opportunity to teach a dental class. And he had a HRSA grant, and what he was actually trying to do, which was super innovative at the time, which was only a few years ago, because my business has been full-time for over 2 years. I've had my business for 3 years. And what this chairman said is that he had a grant, and he wanted to have some nutrition classes taught, and that he would pay me to come up with a curriculum. And I was on cloud nine. I mean, I thought that I was so special. And it was the most money I had ever earned for that type of work, right? And so I ended up teaching. And so I was teaching a curriculum. I ended up teaching for medical students and pediatric residents about nutrition education. I taught motivational interviewing, which I now teach. That translates really well into my programming now that I help dietitians. And that gave me some hope. But still, with teaching a curriculum, working overtime, working at the clinic, I still wasn't making that much money. I mean, maybe like $10,000 more than, and especially with taxes, or maybe $12,000 more than my base pay. And I had no life. And I was just kind of like a cross between slightly proud that I thought and acted differently, but then also mostly bitter that not much came of it. And my efforts didn't feel fruitful, right? So one day I was telling a friend who supported me, and she actually asked me to teach a nutrition education class for her company. She does wellness. And we were just catching up one day, and I told her about what was going on, and she said, why don't you just go on social media and share about it? And I wasn't super active too much about what I was up to. And I said, you know what, I'll give it a shot. So I went on Instagram and started talking about nutrition education and connecting with dietitians. And my whole goal was to connect with other like-minded dietitians. And I didn't really have a strong objective, but very quickly, I mean, within a month, I made money. And what ended up happening is that dietitians asked me pretty fast, like, oh, can you teach me how to express myself with nutrition education, right? So they just, it was a really natural thing where I was just talking and I showed my face a lot. And now if you follow me, I have a campaign. I say use the hashtag show your face and tag me, because that's really how I grew my business, and that's how my clients grow theirs. It's not always about the viral content. It's really about connecting with your audience and really humanizing the experience of social media by differentiating yourself and showing up for yourself and showing up for your clients. And so by me doing that, even though I wasn't entirely clear with how I was solving a problem back then, right, several years ago, I was able to get people to say, I want to learn how to do that too. Can you help me? Can you support me? Can you show me? And I charged, very low rate to do coaching. I didn't understand, like, it was all news to me. I thought it was really cool. I felt so much more valued. And I finally found peers that wanted more, right? That were driven and wanted to like do something beyond what the structured clinical job had set out for me to do. And it felt really rewarding. And so I initially started my business not knowing it would come to $1 million company, not in my wildest dreams. Yeah. I did this because I wanted to represent nutrition education, and I wanted to learn what peers out there are doing something similar. And I was just overwhelmed with joy with the opportunities I found, not only to find amazing people, but really help them craft their business. So I started coaching dietitians And within 5 or 10 of my first clients, they were super successful. I mean, heavy hitter dietitians that are now like extremely popular, monetize their social media platforms. They're all guests on my podcast. I have over 200 episodes and interviews with current and past clients that share their story about how they've gone from 0 to 6 figures, 0 to multi 6 figures. Some of them do a side hustle. A lot of them are full-time. Some of them are beginners. Some of them are now more advanced, and they're able to share their story of how they've been able to break through their limiting fears by leveraging the power of social media to build their brand. And that's what I teach, and that's what I did, and that's what I show dietitians how to do. So it all started in that dimly lit clinical office, and I asked my clients to share, and not only clients, my followers, right? So people in the community, I asked them to share their clinical stories because, as I had mentioned, when I went on social media, I felt alone. I didn't know there was anyone out there who was frustrated and disgruntled, because I only knew, the dietitians in my community, and some of them were happy in clinical, some of them complained here and there, but they didn't seem to want as much as I did as far as impact and making more money. I didn't see a lot of action taking until I went online and then kind of created that community. And really like disrupted that scene of, you can ask for more money, you can create impact, you can create, this great legacy with your body of work, and increase access via memberships, programming, high-end coaching, and all different types of offers that we're able to create once people know we exist. So unlike being invisible in that clinical office, right, where nobody knows who you are, you have a shitty chair, crappy chair, there's not great lighting, people don't know you exist. We're not really paid well unless you're a diabetes educator, and you don't get to be a certified diabetes educator until you put in, 1,000 hours or something like that. Yeah. So you just have to seriously, just show up every day, clock in and clock out to get those hours, to then be paid a little bit more. It's just it's awful. And I didn't like it. And so when I look back to how invisible I felt in my clinical office, it inspires me to help dietitians become visible by leveraging social media and market to who they want to serve, create a community, and really help transform people's lives. And so I have so many clients who've been able to do that and really align with their passion and escape clinical. They don't have to serve that 2-year death sentence, or they can skip it altogether. And I've got several students that have been able to skip clinical, just go straight from their internship into building their own practice. And it's just really magical to be able to see and inspire this whole community of dietitians. And my hopes is that, as I said, my mission is all dietitians, dietitian will create more private practice operators, increase that stat from 3 to 10%, but also those who want to have the opportunity, the skills, accountability, the knowledge, the roadmap, and the confidence to do so, because it isn't something we're used to. A 7-figure dietitian is unheard of, right? That's only something that maybe 1 or 2 dietitians have achieved, right? Maybe Mae Musk, who's a model or something like that. We don't assume that dietitians can create that type of wealth, because that's not something we've seen, and that's something that, my company is creating for those who want it. And it is that one's a harder sell, because a lot of dietitians are still wrapping their head around 6 figures, meaning a salary of $100,000, $200,000, anywhere from $100,000 to under $1 million. $1 million is definitely more aspirational, and it is possible, but it's really exciting to be involved in that conversation and in that community. And more than anything, just see our clients go from nothing to being able to attract clients through marketing and enjoy the process, create a cash pay business, and then transform the lives of their clients, whether it's weight loss, chronic disease management, food freedom, eating disorder, performance nutrition, life cycle nutrition, lactation, whatever the health outcome is, however our dietitian clients want to position themselves, there's a space for everybody, because there's so many people when we use social media that want our help. And so when we're able to position ourselves and put ourselves out there, it's just really incredible to see the results and to see our clients transform. And it's not just the money they're able to make, it's really just the amount of lives that they're able to impact, which is far greater in numbers than what you're able to do in clinical, especially if we think about the stages of change model. And people who are looking for help, and they're searching, diabetes, lower A1C, whatever outcome and health solution they're looking for on social media. If we as dietitians are able to pull up as a number one resource, and we're positioning ourselves as the expert. And so then when we say we're upset that other people are, marketing better, like, we have an opportunity to do that if we just really prioritize our ability to be seen and heard on social media, which is absolutely the number one way that dietitians can position themselves to attract clients.
Yeah. Yeah. Awesome. I love it. There's so much gold in what you just shared, but I know some of the things that really stood out for me is I kind of liked how you shared when you first got that teaching job in dental, how you were so excited, like you made it big, but then over time it started to almost feel like another full-time job, and that little bit of bitterness in there because you're like, okay, now you got the money, but what about the life, right? So, and that kind of made me think about when we become dietitians, we're so excited, I'm a dietitian, but then some of those realities of the pay and all of the things can become a bummer. And so I thought that was, a really good picture of what I see happen a lot, where people get excited and then the reality set in. But I love how you went out and you found your own opportunities and how you've been able to use and leverage social media, because as dietitians, we are so darn lucky to live in this day and age where we can reach and impact so many people. So thank you so much for sharing your story. So for the rest of the interview, I wanted to talk about mindset, motivation, and time, especially for the dietitian side hustler who eventually wants to leave their full-time job and become a full-time entrepreneur. Now, I know there's some dietitians who they like their clinical job. They just want to do a little something on the side, but specifically speaking to those side hustlers who they want this, they want to go to be a full-time entrepreneur. So starting off talking about mindset, what type of mindset do you need to develop to transition from being a side hustler to a dietitian boss?
Absolutely. Well, mindset is one of the most important topics, and it's an iterative process. And so I'd like to remind us all that taking a moment to reflect on your mindset is the first step. So the first thing I would suggest doing is something your listeners are already doing, is listening to this podcast. So in really consuming content that's inspiring and motivating and that's learning and sharing a direction that you want to move towards is super helpful. So if you are in a clinical job right now and you want to learn more about a nutrition education topic, whether it be sustainability, chronic disease management, et cetera, that's a great start, right? Because you're learning more about your trade. And then the other next step above that would be listening to content like this, reading books about mindset. I recommend the book called Mindset by PhD Carol Dweck. And I love her model of shifting from fixed to growth. So fixed mindset would be something along the lines of, I'm a dietitian, the median salary is low, I'm never going to make more money. Where growth would say, I'm a dietitian. You're transforming that statement, right? You're transitioning it to take something that seems negative and you're restating that to something such as, I'm a dietitian. I'm proud I worked to get to this point. I am the expert. I have an opportunity to break through and make more money and help more people, right? So it's constantly shifting your mindset to something from what's called fixed to what's called growth oriented. And it's a process that can be hard to self-correct, which is why surrounding yourself with like-minded people, and I know we were talking about this earlier before we press record, Katie, but being in a group of like-minded people, whether that's a friendship circle, a paid opportunity, hiring a coach, being in a mentorship community. I'm in multiple communities. I'm on committee in my communities because I'm leading leaders is important to be able to really bake in that mindset and helping other people as well. So I think it's really important to make sure that you are with people who want more. And that's why I went, if you remember my story, that's why I went on social media, because I was like, okay, these dietitians that I'm talking to and that are in my direct network are fairly content enough where they're like, oh yeah, it'd be cool if I made more money, but they like didn't ask for a raise and they just wanted to, punch the clock until they hit 1,000 hours to be a certified diabetes educator and then, dig their grave. And for me, like, I have to be around other like-minded people. Yeah. It is so important for me. So to give that information and recap it in some kind of a listicle form, I'm going to say, number one, take small steps, whether it's learning more about, if you're feeling intimidated, learning more about a topic in nutrition that excites you is totally cool, right? I mentioned sustainability, chronic disease management, et cetera. Number two, listen to something growth oriented, whether it be business, books, podcasts. I think an easy way is dietitian based content, right? Like your podcast, Katie, mine, those would be great resources to be inspired. And then surround, the book I mentioned, Mindset by Carol Dweck, you can listen on Audible, you can read it on paperback. That's a great resource. And then surround yourself by like-minded people, even if that means communities on social media. So you're commenting, engaging, interacting with people who are inspiring and supportive, whether that's you watching a YouTube channel that you enjoy, or you're listening to podcasts or engaging on Instagram. So I think that surrounding yourself in those communities and following that process in those 3 or 4 steps would be a really good start for beginners. I have different tips for mindset as you progress. And as you make this your full-time, at every stage of your growth, there's going to be new situations that you're going to have to endure with mindset. And it's really important that you continue to hone in on that, recognizing it, and doing a lot of self-work to improve, because to help more people and increase more revenue and profitability in your own company, you're going to have to work on your mindset. There's no way around it. It's super important. So some of those higher level mindset tactics can include time for reflection, meditation, really baking in those self-care practices. And then I recommend, I know you're a volunteer, Katie, and I think that's great that you do that. I also volunteer on committees and on boards. So I'm on the board for EO Entrepreneur Organization, it's an organization for millionaires, YEC, Young Entrepreneur Council, that's another organization for millionaires. So on the committee, I network and learn even more by leading leaders and helping out other millionaires. And that's my way of surrounding myself with like-minded people and being with peers, the same way that I teach my clients to be around like-minded peers, because it's super important.
Yeah, yes, absolutely. And I'm going to have to pick up that book called Mindset. I
Yeah.
wrote that down. I'm going to get that one. And yes, I do believe too that mindset's so important. And I loved also how you brought in community, on how important it is to surround yourself with people who want more, because it takes that motivation and excitement you feel and keeps it going. It provides that sustainment where you're not like excited and then, okay, I don't care about it. It's something that they keep you motivated. They keep you on track. And it's just so helpful to be around people who inspire you.
Absolutely. And then just for social media, I do say use the hashtag show your face and tag me. And there's so much power, even if you're not leveraging social now fully, or you're not clear what you want to do, just being able to show your face and make connections and let people know like who you are and have them humanize that interaction, since you can't meet people, and even if you can, you're reminded of them.
Yeah.
It's really important. So I strongly suggest, if anything, take that small action and show up. And if you tag me, I'll give you a shout out and help you increase your visibility, because it's super important and it becomes easier when you do it more consistently. So those are small little tips.
Yeah. Yeah. Awesome. Thank you so much. So next, let's talk about motivation. So sometimes, like I mentioned, it's really easy to be motivated when you're just getting started or when everything feels exciting. But what tips do you have for side hustlers to sustain their motivation in order to reach their goals?
Yeah, as far as sustaining motivation, gosh, that's such a heavy topic. And I feel like this is the same exact question about mindset.
Yeah.
So for me, and for our clients, I teach them that motivation is based on clarity with your goals, right? So what is it that you want to do? And whether it's you're thinking about shorter term or longer term, the more clear you are, and it can take time, and there's no pressure, you don't have to spell it out, but visualizing the path you're working towards, as you heard me say at the top about my mission and vision, getting clear with that direction, even if your first or 10th or 12th or 100th draft isn't final, that's okay. You're going to have a lot of drafts as part of your process and in your business development. So I think that getting a clear sense of who you are, who you want to help, how you want to transform lives, what body of work you want to create in this world, getting that out on paper, putting it on your wall, speaking it often is really going to help. And then as I'm sure you've told your listeners, and a really common thing to hear in business is really starting with your why. So getting really clear on why you're doing what you're doing. I know for you, Katie, you've got kids, and that can be really motivating. And for me, it's important that I show and share with dietitians that we can be private practitioners, right? Even
Yeah.
though the stats don't show that many of us own our own business, and private practice operators is a new thing, right? So preceptors and even in school, we're told that we have to go right into our clinical death
Yep.
sentence,
Yep.
and we're not good enough, and we're not an expert, and we're never ready. This does our profession harm because
Yeah.
we only learn by doing. And if we don't help serve the people that are dying of chronic ailments, right, whether on the range and spectrum or whatever health outcome they want to achieve, if we don't provide a service and let them know we can help, somebody else will.
Yep.
So it's really important. And so, big purpose and motivator for me is to help disrupt the field and show dietitians and consumers, but firstly dietitians, that there is space for us to become private practice operators, whether it's part-time or full-time. And then consumers indirectly will start to know, what is a dietitian? And the only way consumers will be more aware of who we are and what we do is if we make ourselves visible online. And we have to do that by showing our face. We have to create regular content. And that's where people are looking for information. And if you want to, fight me on this, because people do all the time, oh, I don't want to do social media. Then I'll ask them, how'd you hear about that restaurant you went to last week? And where do you go when you want to buy something, right? You look on social media, and that's no different than people who are looking on social media for solutions as well. So it's really important that we were relevant.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I'm motivated personally because I have a clear vision, and
Yeah.
I'm motivated because my team helps me get there. And before I had a team and before my mission was as clear, I was motivated to help serve dietitians and build that community. And so I started with something small, and it built over time with the success of my company and then our clients as well. The first thing I have them do is write goals down, get clear. And I have two programs in my advanced program. We actually do quarterly goal setting sessions with our dietitians that are looking to hire, build a team, review their budget, and develop processes in their business. We set quarterly goals with them, and those quarterly goals serve as a compass. So on our regular coaching calls in our executive program, we review what is your quarterly goal, and any question or topic that comes up, we want to answer it based on that goal and help keep people on track. So for those of you listening, thinking about the future, although this conversation is a bit aspirational, there are opportunities for you to think ahead and plan ahead, whether it's, even if it's part-time. So this doesn't matter if it's full or part-time, you still need to have a direction. So if you're full-time, you might ramp it up and do more hours, but the strategy and the way to get there, the route to making money is the same, whether you're doing it for 40 hours a week, 10 hours a week, or you're deciding to do it every now and then. And so I think it's really important that you have a system in place, and that the more clear you are on the goals and the outcome, the better. And I don't think as dietitians we're used to that as far as setting business goals. And it's something I'm really passionate about teaching, because it's the clearest path I see our clients take, including myself, to get to where they want to go. I sold myself when I hit close to $1 million. I said, this is my goal, right? When I hit $500,000, I said, this is where I want to be, and this is where I'm going to go, and I'm going to hit it in 2020, and I did it. And so quantifying that and setting it out and achieving it and having it written out and having a plan and executing it is the only way that you're going to get to your goal, whatever your goal might be, whether it's to get your first client, to make consistent $200 a month, or for you to show your face regularly. Like, insert whatever goal it is, small or big, you got to write it down and make it clear and create a SMART goal around it. And you guys all know what SMART goals are.
Yeah, we do. I love that. And I also love the piece about, having a why, building your business, your side hustle, whatever you're doing, on a solid foundation of knowing why you're doing it, and then setting those goals. I know I do quarterly goals myself as well. And it's something where I've got these big long-term goals, but I'm also making the small ones. So I always have a target to go to. So it's very helpful. Thank you, Libby. So finally, let's talk about time. So this is the number one concern I hear from my audience. They have big dreams, they want to pursue their side hustle, but they just don't feel like they have enough time. So what advice would you give for dietitians who feel like time is a barrier?
Yeah, so I think that's a great question. And as far as time being a barrier, it's really about priorities. So I would ask, what's your priority? And most of us, we have 5 or 10 hours a week, right? So what are you willing to sacrifice or compromise? So think of the last time that you sacrificed something to get what you wanted, right? Maybe you wanted to add in an extra yoga class, or you wanted to meditate, or you wanted to get your degree in dietetics, right? And what did you sacrifice, right? Maybe it was time with your family, maybe it was time relaxing, whatever that might be. So in building your business, especially you're starting it on the side, I don't know, what do you have to say, Katie? Because for me, I say 5 to 7 hours a week is
Yep.
a great way to start that. And if you outline and carve out that time in that space
Yep.
and build on it, that's a good way to get going. And going back to the earlier question about mindset, I think if you start those 5 to 7 hours a week, even half of that, with a book, a podcast, whether you're taking a walk, if you are commuting to work right now, or whatever it is that you're doing throughout your day, when you're consuming content that's going to inspire you, that can keep you accountable and on track towards your goals. But it really, as far as time is concerned, it's all about priority. And you start small. So nobody said you needed to work 40 hours from the beginning. You know, you build up to it. And I think that anytime someone's spending too much time and spinning their wheels, it's because they don't have a roadmap, they don't have a strategy, they're trying 10 million different things, and they don't know where they're going. Oftentimes our clients come to me to our program and they don't know who they're talking to, they don't have a target market, they don't know what they don't have any direction. Right? And if they do, they might be selling something that's not profitable, and they don't have a system, even if it's simple. So I think it's really important to just start really small and build up and ask yourself, do you want this? And if you have a clear why, even if it's something that's more half-baked, for example, like I just want to help people, that's fine. We can start with that and you can build on it with time, right? As far as your why, because that can be a heavy conversation. But you have to go back and remember that, you know, you want to help more people, and it's important to get this started. And just referring back to that on days where you're feeling a little frustrated is going to be a great way to keep going, because it's really not about time. It's about priorities, and it's about making sure that you're carving out a minimum amount of hours at the beginning to get this going. And then as you progress, I actually teach our clients that you don't need to work a long work week. You can focus on delegation and automation and ways to work less hours and really do the tasks that are going to be more valuable in your business, such as speaking, working on your program development, you know, creating content for your programming is going to be a higher value use of your time, not scheduling your posts and doing administrative work, which you can easily delegate and manage from a virtual assistant. So you start out working, but you want to focus that time. And then as you progress and learn to delegate, it's not that you have to work more hours, you're just working smarter as long as you have the ability to hire. And that is something we teach our clients. And it's a really beautiful process, and it can also challenge your mindset, where you're going to have to learn how to let go of that control. And I know a lot of us dietitians struggle with that, but it's a really beautiful lesson to learn, because ultimately letting go of control and hiring, let's say, a virtual assistant to help you is going to help you help more people.
Yes. Yes. Awesome. Wonderful tips. And I love what you said there. It's not about time, it's about priorities. And the 5 to 7 hours per week, that is actually how much I recommend, even with my blogging accelerator program. That's what I tell people. It's 5 to 7 hours a week. You can find the time. So I know you've already shared so much gold, so many actionable items that I think people could take away, but I always like to end my podcast episodes with some type of action item for dietitians to leave the episode with. So what action item would you recommend as the first steps for dietitians wanting to start a side hustle with the intention of eventually leaving their full-time job and being a full-time entrepreneur?
The first step, let's say, are these people listening on social media?
Yeah.
I would say show your face. No matter what you want to do, if you want to, everything goes back to showing your face. So start small. If you've never done it before, you can do a selfie. You can start with once a week. Video is amazing. If you can, you know, go on Instagram and go on your stories and record video, that's great. Again, you can use the hashtag show your face, tag me for accountability, because I know it can feel scary, but everything goes back to that. Because if you want to build a community, you got to show up so people know you exist.
Yeah.
If you want to stand out, right, you got to differentiate by showing up. Doesn't matter if you have makeup on or not, you just got to show up.
Yep.
Doesn't matter if you've had a crappy day, people just want to know you're human. So all things go back to showing up. So I would say if there's one tip out of everything we've discussed today, we've talked about a lot of stuff, right?
Yeah.
Defining your why, getting clear with your circle, all that kind of stuff. Just show up, just show your face.
I love it. So if you're not on social, get on social and show your face, tag Libby. And, because I listen to your podcast, I'm very familiar with show your face. I don't really use the hashtag, but I'm going to start doing it. I'm going to tag you.
So. I tag me, and then I will, mention that we were on this podcast and we had a nice conversation. Yeah, and that'd be great.
Yeah, I will. Absolutely. For a while I had something that helped me because I'm one of those people where showing my face was hard because it was like, I can post a picture, that's easy, but showing my face, doing video, that was really hard. So I actually had something I did called Show Your Face Fridays. So that way every Friday I would take your advice and show my face, even if it was one day a week, just to get started. So if you're feeling like, oh, that's scary, just one day a week, you guys could do it.
I love that, Katie. So are you still doing that on Fridays?
I'm actually doing it every day now.
Look at you. Yeah. All right. And how does it feel? Have you seen any changes, or how has that impacted your business or your vision?
It's new for me. I just realized I need to be in front of my audience more. I can reach more people, impact more people if I'm in front of my audience more. And it's been so fun. I was on my stories this morning on Instagram, super sweaty after running, but got on anyways, no makeup, sweating. But I think you're right. A lot of the times we connect with humans. We want to say, okay, they're human too. They're just like us. And so whatever you're doing as a dietitian, I think it is so helpful to just, show people the human side of you. So awesome. Well, it has been so fun chatting with you today, Libby. I know at the beginning you shared your social handles, but if you want to give a final shout out so people can remember where to go follow you right away on Insta.
Absolutely. So you can find me on Instagram at Libby Rothschild, and all of the other platforms are Dietitian Boss. So my YouTube is fairly new. My podcast has been around for a while. And then you can check out my website, dietitianboss.com.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much.
Absolutely. It's been a pleasure. Thanks for having me on, Katie.
Yeah. Thanks so much for listening to the podcast, guys. Be sure to head on over to the Dietitian Side Hustle website at dietitiansidehustle.com and check out our coaching page to learn about all the ways that we can work together. Have an amazing day, and I'm so proud of you for taking the initiative to listen to this podcast. Now go out there and get it done. Bye, guys.